because I do not have much of a voice. My name is Randy Rosica. I'm presiding commissioner of St. Genevieve County, and we have a public meeting this evening for informational purposes, to discuss the ballot issue on coming up April for 911 funding. So basically what this is currently our 911 service is funded by a fee on your landline telephone bill. Inasmuch as landlines are diminishing to a point where those funds can no longer pay for the service. Last year, we took in approximately $105,000 in landline fees. The expenses to operate the system were in excess of $500,000. So what this would do, if this were passed, is it would put 3/8 of 1% sales tax on certain items, which we're going to have Alan elaborate on when he gets up here because my voice is failing fast. But it will replace the current fee on the landlines. So without any further ado, I'm going to bring up Alan Wells here. He's the director of the 911 service. Thank you, Alan, for coming out. And we'll let him speak to it.
Yes, and like Randy said, this is such a vital piece to help fund your emergency 911 system here for you in St. Genevieve County, and also your radio communications dispatch services for your police, your fire, and your EMS in their responses. Your 911 system was originally passed. The voters said they wanted 911 here in the county. They said we were willing to pay for it. They were willing to pay 15% of the base dial tone on their landline telephone. And that was passed in the early 1990s, 93 or so, 94. And that was all well and good. And the phone companies working in the United States and working here in Missouri and here in St. Genevieve County were landline-based carriers. Little did we know, 10, 15 years later, there was going to be such a move off of landline into wireless cell phones and technologies. That caused our citizens to start getting away and canceling their landline telephone. That meant they were also canceling the funding for your 911 system. So that being said, that's why today it's only generating about a little over $100,000 a year, and your cost, just to operate your budgets for St. Genevieve County side of the house is over $500,000 a year. So 12 years ago, we consolidated. St. Francis and St. Genevieve consolidated because we were struggling the same way in St. Francis County. We have since passed the sales tax of 3/8%, and our revenues are doing really well. But at that time, both of us were struggling, St. Genevieve and St. Francis. One, our technologies were antiquated and in bad need of replacement and upgrades, but the cost is so expensive of this technology and the equipment. So the consolidation made sense. It only helped us share that cost and reduce the cost for both counties so that we could survive. And we did for many, many years together. Very good relationship in the consolidation. But in doing so, we were able to bring much more sophisticated and much newer technologies to the citizens so that we can try to reduce time in a response. That's the goal. Reduce seconds, you save more lives and save more property. So that consolidation went into place about 12 years ago and has been very successful. But on St. Genevieve, it's a struggle trying to come up with the cost because of your landline diminishing so rapidly. So at 3/8%, let's say, well, what is that going to cost me? Well, today, probably about 20% of your populace here in the county is funding it 100% for the whole populace. So think about that. About 20% of the people is paying for 911 and about 80% aren't paying a penny for it. But they're getting the service and they use the service. This also includes travelers up and down your interstate of 55. Also, the Mississippi River. So people who are traveling through your communities, through your counties, and using your resources, they're having accidents, they're having heart attacks, they're having wrecks out here on the interstate, and they're taxing your system. They're taxing your responders, your police departments, fire departments, and EMS, responding to these emergencies, but they're not helping fund your system at all. So converting off of the landline, which you're paying 15% of the base dial tone, those 20% of your populace are. So that averages, well, what's your base dial tone from your carrier? It could be anywhere from probably $1.30 something a month, upwards of $4 a month. It depends upon that carrier and what they charge for that base dial tone for your landline telephone service. At 3/8%, let's think about that for a second. At 3/8% sales tax, it doesn't apply to fuel, gasolines. It does not apply to medications, prescriptions, and medical. It does not apply to groceries at the grocery store. So you would have to spend, or if you spent $100 a month on other things, at 3/8%, that's 32 cents. 32 cents is what it will cost. However, it costs everybody that, not just a few people. Everyone's contributing now to help fund your 911 system, including the people traveling through your county and through your communities that don't live here, that are using your services. So it's pretty much a necessity. It's needed to improve and to continue the 911 systems here for your community, and the upgrades of technology to include your radio communication system. It also needs to be improved. The FCC did a frequency split in the frequency arena that we work in, causing us to cut that in half. 50% of the area or bandwidth that we work on in our police, fire, and EMS arena in our communications. So let's say we have that window, it's 25 bandwidth wide. They just made us narrow it down to 12.5 in 2014. Also requiring reduction of your wattage, your power on your radios that you use. So that has created havoc for our responders responding out in the field and trying to communicate on their handhelds inside of critical infrastructures, schools and courthouses and buildings that are built like this facility you have here, a very nice facility. Buildings today are being built much better and stronger than they used to be 20 or 30 years ago to withstand the elements. Also, a lot of metal roofs, very popular today versus 30 years ago. That creates havoc in the VHF communications arena, which we operate for our police, fire, and EMS. So there's a much need there to improve our radio communications infrastructure. It's going to cost money. So 3/8% versus the fee on a landline. The landline fee will go away for your 20% of citizens that are still paying it. That fee will come off of their landline bill. And 3/8%, 32 cents if you spend $100, or $1.60 if you spend over $500 a month, of what the tax even applies to. And so it's much needed. It's a conversion. And that's pretty much all it is. Converting it off of the landline, putting it on a sales tax so that everybody gets to help share for that need when they need the service of 911 and your police, fire, and your EMS. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, have you done the math yet? If this passes, will it provide you with the monies that you need to move forward with the technologies that you need to invest in?
It will certainly generate more money for your government entities here in the county, because right now that dollars are being subsidized by the county commission, by their general revenues. It's being subsidized by the city of St. Genevieve, by their general revenues. It's being subsidized by the ambulance district and their general revenues. So, and this is a service that the citizens already voted on back in I believe it was 93 or 94 here in St. Genevieve County. They said they wanted 911 and they were willing to pay for it up to 15% on the base dollar. dial tone. So it will help greatly. It will help keep us on top of where technology keeps changing. There's a new movement in the United States, and that's called Next Generation 911. Because of the wireless world that we're moving into and we're living in already in many communities, Next Generation 911 will allow an incident or a caller that's in distress or in an accident. That call can also send a video with that 911 call. It can send medical information along with that 911 call. It can send photographs with that 911 call. And think about it. 911 doesn't just come from a landline telephone today. It comes from cellular phones. It comes from voice over IP infrastructures. It comes off of the internet. It comes from OnStar in your car, or the devices, and many, many, many more, and keep on going, that can actually call 911 today, not just a landline telephone. So that's what we have to plan for. That's what we have to upgrade our technologies in the 911 center continuously to keep up with what device industry comes out with next, and our citizens purchase it and buy it. So good question. It will. It will certainly help us stay on top of that. Any other questions?
How much would this upgrade cost the county to upgrade to the new systems?
We're constantly upgrading, and we try to stay on top of it. Our 911 backbone system that we both share today is already 6 years old. The life cycle of them are 7 years. So we're going to be looking at an upgrade in that system probably in the near future, a couple of years, and it's very expensive, that backroom equipment is. But that's only one piece. You still have your computer-aided dispatch systems, that's a component of it. You have your records retention system and recording system that has to record all 911 phone calls, telephone calls, all radio communications, your police, fire, and EMS. The biggest ticket item in front of us right now today for both St. Francis County and San Luis County is improving this radio infrastructure, the backbone of the radio network and systems, and putting it into what we call a P25 digital environment in our radio networks. A lot of public safety across the country and in Missouri has already moved to this arena. We're still operating in the old VHF arena, the one that the FCC mandated us to split and reduce our power. So a digital environment infrastructure means new towers and means replacing the backbone equipment that will go at these tower sites and also in the dispatch, the 911 center in the back room. So that once we improve that infrastructure, then it's a matter of the mobiles and portables. And some of the departments have already moved to a mobile and portable P25 ready radio because of a mandate years ago, or a few years back, that all manufacturers of radio equipment, public safety radio, that their radios meet P25 standard. So if you go buy a new radio today, it's probably going to meet a P25 standard. But we want one that can work in all arenas. We want one that can work in a VHF, in a trunked environment, and a digital environment. Our goal is then, once we get the infrastructure done and installed, our police, fire, and EMSs can still work in the arena on the existing equipment that they have as long as they need to. But they're going to work inside these type of buildings. They're going to be able to communicate and get out and in their time of need. That's the scariest thing on a daily, routine basis for us in the 911 center, is talking to our responders and we can't communicate with them. And we know they're going in on a bad, high-profile situation. That's the worst nightmare ever. And so that will help eliminate that problem in our communications. It is costly. We're looking at about somewhere between $6 to $7 million price tag, and that's both counties combined.
What is St. John's share of, I guess, that?
Of the communications. St. John has got to pay for their own. It's not part of their budget, daily operating budget agreement that they have with us. This is outside that daily operating budget. So they're going to need to come up with those funds from here. And it's around $3 million. Now, we've not put this out to bid or anything yet, so it could be less. I don't see it being more. I think we've got it figured pretty much where it should be, or maybe a little high. We're figuring a little bit high because we're not sure yet on all the towers and how much it's going to cost, and maybe even a couple of the locations we may have to purchase some land. So there's some unknowns there that we don't have locked down yet. But the estimate right now is about $3 million for St. Genevieve side of the house and a little over $4 million for the St. Francis side of the house.
Okay, thank you.
But those are a one-time expense. The bigger dilemma, though, is they're generating $100,000 to meet a $500,000 operating budget today. Before we consolidated, St. Genevieve's operating budget was over $600,000, and they were in distress with their equipment, which at that time they needed over $1 million investment just to upgrade the equipment, just to stay in operation the way they were. So as you can see, 12 years later, it's been a dollar savings consolidation for them because we're 12 years later and it's only $500,000 versus where they were 12 years ago at over $600,000 a year. Any other questions?
Good. Well,
All
I
right.
think we covered it, Alan.
I do have
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just didn't want to be the only one asking questions here. So, and I don't know if this would be a question for the commissioners or for you, Alan. Do you know how much the tax would generate, roughly? Has the math been done yet?
Yeah, it should pretty well cover what, the one estimate, wasn't it about 600,000? Yeah.
And it's kind of a guesstimate.
It's
You're
a
taking
guesstimate.
what your other taxes are pretty much kind of generating and just kind of figure some numbers and say, well, this is about a guide. It would probably fall between $600,000 and $700,000.
Right.
And that's a guesstimate.
And it will have its own line item in the budget, dedicated fund. So when that comes in, it cannot get spent on anything else other than the 911 service, And I'd just like to thank Alan again for coming out. He's a wealth of knowledge, and he explained it a lot better than I can, especially losing my voice here. But I will say this: he really knows his stuff. We've been fortunate to be able to tour his facility over at Deloge, and it is state of the art. And that's a whole other story for another time, which he can tell you. But St. Genevieve County is very fortunate to have this partnership with them because we really, really have a good thing. And it works for both sides. It's a cost-sharing program. So we would not be able to have kept up with it. There's no way.
It's very expensive, and we're actually in process of a consolidation with Iron County presently as well because they don't have the funds to do their own operation anymore.
Right.
And we also have what is called virtual consolidation with Perry County is on our 911 system. They help share that cost, as well as Reynolds County helps share that 911 backroom equipment cost. So when we do have to upgrade it, it's going to affect us all, but it's going to be a much lesser amount than us all trying to do it individually on our own.
Yeah.
So, but yes, anytime anybody wants to come and look at the facility, tour it, we're very happy with it. One of the signs on the building on the front actually has our county, but it has a tower demonstrating or kind of showing the relationship with St. Genevieve County.
Right.
And these funds aren't going to pay just for the 911. It's going to pay for the dispatch service for all your responders, police, fire, and EMS as well.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
A few, actually. I guess no one else wants to ask any. Yeah, so I don't know if you guys know this offhand, and I don't want to put you on the spot or anything, but do we happen to know, do we have any budget surplus currently on a yearly basis right now?
There's carryover if that's what you mean, but I wouldn't call it surplus. Yeah.
That's your
and
general revenue?
General revenue.
But not part of
But
their
not,
budget.
not as
for
far as
this.
911 goes, because we are,
In the hole?
we're in the hole on that, and we backfill that out of general revenue, so.
Yeah, your landline fee has never actually covered your expense for 911 dispatch, even when you're on operation. It never even came close. I think the maximum it ever generated was about 300,000.
Right.
That's when everybody had a landline.
Right.
Here in your county. Well, your cost, like I said, 12 years ago was over 600,000, and at that time your equipment upgrade was going to be over $1 million just to sustain what your own operation
And,
was.
and the trajectory of what it brings in has been a steady decline, and it will continue to. I mean, they'll reach a point where virtually, other than some businesses, I don't think anybody will have a landline anymore.
It'd be very few.
Yeah.
Yeah, very few. But it's a much needed initiative right now to get this on track so that general revenues of your cities and everyone else aren't absorbing all of the costs for your 911.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, again, it's something your citizens said they wanted years ago, and we're willing to pay something for it. And the ones that are paying for it are paying more for it than it will cost them,
Right.
converting over to a sales tax.
So when you discussed earlier about the certain items, so it sounds like it doesn't go against basically like along the lines of the food tax or the grocery tax.
Necessities.
Yeah, could you explain why that is?
It's part of the statute that is required that things that are necessities of life shouldn't be included. So it is groceries and medications and fuel. So, like I said, you'd have to spend, if you spend $100 on other things outside of your necessities of your budget that you live on, if you spend $100 a month, it'd be 32 cents. If you spend $500 a month, it costs you $1.60. So,
Thank you.
anybody else?
Well, thank you, Al.
Thanks for all the attendance.
And thanks
You
for,
all heard this.
thanks for putting this on record, and hopefully people watch this and get where we're coming from. And also, anybody that's watching this TV later on, if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to the county commission. Any of the three of us would be happy to answer any questions you have, or you can contact Alan Wells too. Okay?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Thank you.